Hey there guys, Spets here, back again with another patch rundown, this time for patch 5.13. To anyone who's new to these and is just coming in, welcome guys. I'm someone who's been playing since 2011, and I try to be a little bit more in-depth with my patch rundowns, really talk about how it will affect solo queue and competitive play, all the changes. But there's a lot of things this patch that it's just impossible to go too in-depth. I'm going to be as in-depth as possible, while still being quick about it. We're going to start right away. The death recap change this time around, this is something that people have been looking for since the game's been out. Death recap is a really inaccurate representation of what actually kills you. It's really basically useless. Sometimes you would see revive killing you. So hopefully a lot of the bugs are changed and fixed, and we can see what actually killed us now so we can itemize against it. Recoded line projectile skill shots. Last patch, I think it was, or maybe the patch before that, they were cleaning up skill shots, making them more responsive when hitting a target. So like actually using hitboxes instead of center of target calculations. They're just confirming that it's turned on for every single region. So that's basically all that is. Slow stacking, this is actually quite a big change. I think the way slow stacking is now is that it would stack each percentage slow or base slow onto your target, and you can go to like very low movement speed values because of this. Now it changes, it's actually a nerf to slows in general. It changes it to, instead of slows beyond the first are applied at half value, so now it is just the strongest slow. So let's say if you have a really strong slow, an 80% slow, that's the only one that applies, and it really doesn't matter after that point. So I think this is good. It's not a big deal because usually the strongest slow will mean the most, but it is a nerf to slows overall. Tahm Kench is the new champion. I think he's very interesting. I played a lot of him on PBE. They wanted to gear him towards being a support, but I think he's going to be very good as a top laner. He scales very well with items. His W is very strong against tanky champions. His E is very good if you have resistances. Just all around, he can scale well. His ult scales off health, so like the passive to it. I would take a look at this, really go in and see exactly what he has. The champ spotlight, I think, is the most important thing. I will pull out a link of that in the description below. Take a look at him, very cool. I think he can maybe be played in the jungle, but he can't swallow big monsters like red and blue buff, so it makes his clear, like his first clear, really weak. His W does a lot of damage to like Gromp, Raptor, and Krug, stuff like that. But to like the main monsters, you can't swallow them, so it can't do a lot of damage. But I think as a jungler, he can be viable. Ekko, not too big of a change this patch. He got nerfed in the last patch. They're just kind of cleaning him up, I guess. Ekko's attack frame slightly improved. Not a big deal. Maybe just cleaner attack animation. And recommended items updated to go along with what people are building him as. Just things to help newer players. Jayce, I think this is more like a bug fix. Fixed a bug that gave Jayce his R bonuses at 5, 10, 15 instead of 6, 11, 16, the normal levels that you get at. And I think that's just something that should have been there originally, so they're just making sure it's fixed. This is a pretty big change to Kalista. It's kind of weird how they're doing it. They're increasing her base attack damage, but making her actual attack do 90% instead of the 100%. And it's really weird. And they're making the attack damage growth stat higher, so it's kind of weird. And I think that's mainly because they don't want her to be so strong early game, but still scale just fine. She's actually not great in the super late game, in my opinion, because of the builds that people go. Runan is not; it doesn't scale too well. It gives you a lot of mobility, but not like you don't have that crit from PD. So I don't know exactly what they're trying to do here. I think this will hurt her because let me think. Let's just do the math real quick, guys. So if you take a look at this, so 57 times 0.9. So it would actually be, yeah, it's actually lower. The base attack damage is actually lower at level 1. So that's interesting. They actually nerfed her outright there. Don't completely agree. I think in competitive she is strong, but it has to do with just the ability for her to just get all those stacks on you and just absolutely decimate you in trades, especially once she gets a BF sword. We'll see though. I think she'll still be played. It just depends how much this is going to hurt her her AD is about 51 at level 1 if you do the 90% ratio. Interesting. I don't know how this will work out, but we'll see. Slight change to Kayle, and there's a context right up here. If you guys want to read it, I would go look at the patch notes. I'm going to put that in the description below as well. It's kind of interesting. I don't completely understand it, but it's going to help her last hit in lane. It won't really help her in trading though. So I'm just going to explain it. Kayle's basic attacks deal a certain amount. So this is just the half of the value of her active E, but it's in melee form. So I think it's just going to help her to last hit, but it's not going to do much else. Maybe if you're jungling Kayle, once your E is down, you're just still going to have a bit of extra damage with your autos. But overall, I don't think this will change her, but if you look at the context of the AP changes this patch, they're buffing the AP of Nashers. They're nerfing the attack speed, but I think overall it's slightly better. 10% attack speed versus 20 AP is I think it's a good trade-off, but we'll see. I don't think she might be played in like the top lane, maybe mid lane. I don't know about mid lane anymore, but top lane, and have like the jungle and support be the tank of the team, because right now tanks are really, you see Rumble in the top lane, sometimes Vlad, sometimes some other carry top laners, but Kayle has been falling out of favor, and that's to do with just the meta change, nerfs to Kayle. I don't think it will be enough to bring her back, but maybe a team will want to try her out in a very anti-burst centric composition. Kennen got I think these are just mainly bug fixes, yeah. So fixed a bug in the tooltip where the stun duration was 1.25 seconds, but written as 1 second. I think it was always 1 second. I don't know about a bug. This seems like to be like what Riot's been doing. They say something is wrong in the tooltip when it's really just been that the whole time. Maybe it was meant to be 1.25, but just say it's like a buff to his stun. I don't know, it's interesting. This is just a bug fix in general though. Electrical Surge, it now can proc on his ultimate, Slicing Maelstrom. So anyone inside the AoE, you can just press W and it hits them. It didn't always do that, so that's a good bug fix. Nautilus got a nerf to his Riptide, and rightfully so. He's really strong in the bot lane, and people have been playing him in top lane. It's been taking a while. It's kind of surprising because I think he's a decent top laner because he provides so much CC and tank to his team. It just nerfs the damage to Riptide. It was just really annoying with how low of a cooldown it was. I think this is a good nerf. It won't hurt him too much. It's still a fairly strong low cooldown ability. 200 isn't high, but with how low cooldown it is, it's overall very strong. Okay, Rek'Sai got a nerf to her W. This is actually a pretty large nerf. This is a 20% nerf to the radius. So if you really think about that, it doubles in the AoE. It actually hurts her when she's trying to set up ganks and like pick people off. I don't think it will take away from Rek'Sai's strength, as her Tremor Sense is very good for controlling the map around you. Her mobility with her ultimate or an E are very good. Still a lot of damage with her Q. Just in general, she's still very good. I don't think this will stop her. Just overall, her champion design is very strong, so I don't think it will stop her, but it is a pretty big nerf, so it might hurt her in like ganks and like catching people out and knocking people up. Shyvana got a nerf to her W burnout. I think they actually buffed this last patch. I don't know if it was when she's in her ultimate form, but she got like extra damage on her auto attacks based on burnout's level, I think it was. It was kind of weird, but they're nerfing it again because they're releasing the new Devourer, Sated Devourer, and I think this is fine. I think honestly they should nerf the item, or just wait for the item to like see how strong it is, but instead of nerfing the champion, because this is what they did to Warwick when Devourer and Skirmish's Saber came out. They just nerfed the champion over and over to make up for the strength that they got from items and from like the Skirmisher Saber, which I don't think is the right way to go. I think they should nerf the item because that's usually the problem in and of itself. But we'll see. Singed got a few buffs. I think this is a good buff. His magic resist is a little higher at level 1, and he got magic resist per level. They did this to Shen last patch, and I think this is how a lot of melee champions should be, just because they have to be in the thick of the battle. They take a lot of AoE magic damage from supports, carries, just in general. There's a lot of AoE magic damage, so they kind of need this. And Singe is the person that really needs it, because it gets kited too hard. And Fling got a buff. It used to be 1 second at all ranks, now 2 seconds as it levels up, and I think this is a decent buff. It's actually really hard to land, so I think 2 seconds is fair for a level 5 skill. Again, Singe still has problems with getting kited, even though he does have his move speed steroid with his ultimate. It isn't enough. The tenacity that got removed from it really hurt him. He's still really good in the solo queue. I mean, he can be a split pusher, but again, he's not strong in the sense that he can catch up to people. There's just too much CC in the game. Still gonna be good in solo queue though. He also laughs while he flings, which is funny. I like that. There's a bug fix to Skarner. So this is what I'm understanding it as. You can auto attack or use your E or Q on a enemy, and once you get to 3 stacks, if you auto attack that person, it would stun them. So what I think people were doing when they were about to attack someone to stun them, stopped, and maybe they could hit a turret and stun the turret, which is actually very interesting and funny, but again, should not be there. They say in the description, you are not Homewrecker, Skarner. Stop trying to be one. So yeah, just a bug fix. Syndra got a few buffs, and in my opinion, this might bring her back into competitive. This mostly had to do with how her E acts with different things, so like with Wind Wall. So I'll just read it. Dark Sphere is launched by Scatter of the Weak, now stop in front of Yasuo Wind Wall, and Braum's E Unbreakable instead of being destroyed. So this helps her with her ultimate. She'll still have more orbs on the ground if she wants to use them, and if she wants to use her W to throw it on top of someone. So I think this is good. Fix a lot of bugs around Scatter of the Weak's knockback and stun, sometimes not applying to units hit. There are videos out there, I might try to find one and put it in the description, where you stun the person where you should have stunned the person. It goes right through the person, Scatter of the Weak, doesn't do a thing. So it's been a problem with Syndra, I don't know since when, but I think it was a recent, maybe in season 5. I'm not 100% sure, but hopefully they're fixing it. Fix the bug where Scatter of the Weak could propel Dark Spheres being prepared for Unleashed Power. This is just like a bug fix that actually made her stronger. Units stunned by Dark Spheres are no longer knocked back. Okay, so they stay there. So actually, that kind of helps her in the sense that they're closer to her so she can keep doing damage. I think this is fine, and it actually helps pick people off a little better. Unleashed Power, Dark Spheres intercepted by... Okay, so again, this is so her spheres don't just disappear, so she can use them. Usually it's for her ultimate, but even with her ultimate, it doesn't disappear. It just stops and bounces off, so I think that's fine. It doesn't make those champions weaker, just actually kind of does, but it makes her a little stronger. She needs it. I think she'll be fine, and she might be played in competitive in a pick composition, so I'm looking to see that. I actually kind of like Syndra because she makes things more interesting and just... she just kills people and just like moves games along faster. I think the weakness with her now though is that there are so many tanks in the meta, with like the jungle, top lane, and supports can be played as tanks. She's just not as strong, so maybe in a very niche composition you can do this, like a Morgana, Syndra. I think that would work out, but we'll see. Thresh, a few bug fixes and just like a, I don't know if I would call it quality of life change, but just like a change to his W. Fixed the bug where souls appeared to fly to Thresh from extreme distances. I don't know if he actually got the souls, but I think it was just like a visual bug. And it would just like seem as if he would get it from like very far away when he shouldn't have. And also Scuttle Crab now has a soul. Whenever your jungler clears out Scuttle Crab, you can actually use him. Or maybe when you clear it out, Thresh isn't a very good... I mean, he has some CC to remove the armor and magic resist from Scuttle, but he isn't very good at taking Scuttle. So we'll see. Probably just from the jungler. Dark Passage. Lantern now does not despawn while Thresh is mid-flight towards his death sentence target. So this actually makes those plays easier, where you queue someone with death sentence, and then you throw out your lantern, and you start your Dark Passage to them. Or not your Dark Passage to them, your death sentence to them, and then you take your ally with you. Sometimes it would just disappear, the lantern, and they would just be left behind while you're in the middle of everything. So this makes it a little smoother and easier. I don't think this was necessary because it required you to know exactly the range of it and your teammate to be coordinated with you, but I think it's okay. It wasn't necessary though. Veigar's ultimate now scales, the missile size scales with the ability power he has. I actually want to see how big it can get. It could be interesting, but it's no actual balance change to Veigar. Xin Zhao's battle cry, the ability power ratio has been nerfed. To be honest, this is a pretty big ability power ratio, but AP Xin Zhao is really bad in the larger scheme of things. I mean, like it's very cheesy, and if you get like a Lich Bane or like Nash or stuff like that, Deathcap, you could like heal for a lot and sustain, but it's really bad. Let's be honest. This wasn't really needed. I know they're saying because of the Sated Devourer, so you can go like a really magic damage on hit focused kind of build, but I guess with the buffs to Nashers as well, this might make sense, but it's not a build that's very strong, so it's not really a necessary nerf. It's just like a fun build to mess around with. But okay, whatever, not a big deal. Zilean's rewind can no longer be used unless your Q or E are on cooldown. So that makes sense because the only thing that Zilean can rewind is Q and E. If they're not on cooldown, you can't use them. It just makes it easier for people who are newer. They don't accidentally press W and mess up their combo. Stuff like that. Not a big deal though. Pulsefire Ezreal, his animations for his basic attack and his Q have been tweaked to be more responsive. This was actually a problem with Pulsefire Ezreal for a long time. People didn't even use it because it was just like a worse animation than it was for his regular skin. So I guess it makes it a little better for Pulsefire. I mean, so many people bought it and it was an expensive skin, but they stopped using it after they noticed how bad it was in responsiveness. Okay, so Enchantment Devourer. So this is what I've been trying to get to. Devourer is a item that really required you to farm and stay in the jungle for long periods of time, and it was really bad if, like, let's say you had a Devourer jungler. He would just either be really good about ganking and know how to get kills, but that's very risky, or just farm it out and like really leave you high and dry against the enemy jungler as a laner. So I didn't really like when people went Devourer, but now they made it a lot better once it is stacked up. And I'll just explain, go through it all. They buffed the initial magic damage you get from Devourer right when you buy it. So it's instead of 25, it's 30. Already a buff, one right there. Large monsters, 1 stack per kill. Okay, so this is interesting. Maybe if you're double jungling, 1 stack per takedown, kill, or assist against like a Gromp or a red buff, stuff like that. It gives you a stack. So I guess in competitive, it would actually be a little better. Epic monster, 1 stack per kill, now 5 stacks per takedown. So this is actually very good. You don't need to get the last hit on it. So long as you're actually doing it, you get the 5 stacks. I think that's how it is. I'm not 100% sure, but I think that's how it is. And this actually makes it much faster to get stacks. So you can actually just be a objective focused jungler and get Devourer and get it sated in a decent time, so long as you're taking your objectives, getting scuttle control. I think it says down here. Okay, yeah, so Rift Scuttle gives you 2 stacks per takedown. Again, I don't know what they mean by takedown. I think it's a kill, but I'm not 100% sure. And this allows you to just be a objective focused jungler. You don't need to gank too much. Ganks do give you 1 stack, not as much. And you can get your Sated Devourer, and I'll talk about that later. While stacking your Devourer, you are accompanied by a ghost dog who will grow with stacks. It's like a cute little wolf that follows you. At 30 stacks, Ghost Dog merges with the Wielder, and the Devourer transforms into Sated Devourer. This item is actually very powerful, and I'll explain why. Once you actually get Sated Devourer, you no longer have to farm up. So, like, the one weakness of it is that you can't infinitely stack it, but at the same time, as a jungler, you shouldn't be farming for a majority of the game. You should be making plays. I think the jungler is, in my opinion, the most important person in the early to mid game as a playmaking champion. They have to be very good about it, or they will allow their enemy jungler, if they're good, to just snowball the game out of control. So I think this is actually good. Once you get your Sated Devourer, you don't have to worry about it, and it gives you a lot of damage. So what it does is You get the 30 stacks, you get the 30 damage originally, plus the 30 stacks, so you get 60 damage on hit once you get it sated. On top of that, every other basic attack hits procs your on hit effect twice. So you can get every 2 attacks you get 60 damage plus 120 from the Devourer double hit. So you get, what is it, like 180 damage just from 2 auto attacks. That's a lot. And a lot of attack speed on hit focused jungler, Shyvana, that's why they nerfed her. Warwick, Master Yi would be really good with this because of his just his steroids and his I forget what it is, but it's his passive. But it's gonna make them stronger, and they don't have to stay in the jungle forever because they can't infinitely stack it. But once it actually transforms, it's very strong. So that's all I really have to say about it. It's gonna be very strong. Might be used in competitive, but again, it's a little riskier. It takes time to ramp up. But Cinder Hulk is still very strong. Maybe if you have a tank top lane and support, you can do this. But we'll see. Enchantment Runeglaive. Okay, so the ability power has been buffed. The basic attack damage has been buffed as well because it actually went down in how much you get from it from Sheen to Runeglaive. So now it's just like 1.0 from Sheen to Runeglaive, so it makes sense. Fixed a bug where Runeglaive was applying spell effects, and the reason why mid lane Smite Ezreal was so good was because his Q would proc it, and it would give him, it would actually turn all of your Q damage to magic damage and make you proc Luden. So it was just in general really strong. It's still gonna convert everything to magic damage, I'm pretty sure, but it no longer procs Ludens. I think it's still gonna be strong on Ezreal. The problem with Ezreal mid lane AP was because he had no wave clear. Runeglaive gives him the AoE proc to slowly clear waves, and you can get like the Ranger's Trailblazer enchantment, in my opinion, was the better one out of any of them, and just clear waves, farm very quickly, and it was very difficult to deal with that. You can just be very passive up until you get like maybe a Deathcap or Ludens. I think Deathcap is going to be better now. You don't need to get a Ludens, and you can just like snowball that way. I think it's going to be very strong still. Righteous Glory has been buffed quite significantly. Nerfed quite significantly. And they nerfed the health by quite a lot. It still has the mana portion, so it's still good in that sense. And it builds out a Catalyst, which is a great item. But the nerf to the cooldown, I don't think was 100% necessary. I think they're trying to just make it less efficient, but I think just the cooldown nerf or the health nerf was enough. They actually made it weaker than it was originally. So I think it's going to be much, just in general, not bought as much. I don't think this was both necessary. It's going to be bought less on junglers, I think, but it's still very good for initiating. So supports are definitely going to get this. It's a very good item build-up path. In my opinion, Catalyst and Crystalline Racer are good items, but overall, I think it's going to be a weaker item. Spear Visage got a buff overall. This actually makes it interesting, and I thought this was the way it always worked, but I guess I was wrong. It only helped you with like self-healing items and abilities. So like if you were Warwick, it increased your Q and passive healing portion, lifesteal, spell vamp, anything like that. But it never healed you more for like, let's say a Soraka healing you, a Sona, a Taric. So like for things like that, it will help you even more now. I think this is a good buff again to Soraka and just healers in general. I don't really like Soraka, to be honest, as like just playing against her, but I'm okay with her being a little stronger if this is back in. I don't think this will really do anything to Soraka though. I think she's too weak in lane against really good players. But in the late game, she's insanely powerful, so we'll see. So this patch, there have been a lot of changes to ability power items, the cost efficiency, the build paths, and overall the diversity of what is really good, in my opinion. A lot of things have changed, so I'm just going to get right into them and try to make sense of why they were changed in the way they were. So Blasting Wand, the first one, has been changed. Just really the gold value is slightly less. Doesn't really mean anything, to be honest. The major change is Needlessly Large Rod and how it affects other items. So Needlessly Large Rod is no longer 1600 gold, so it will be much easier to grab on your first buy, so 1250, but it's 20 less AP. It's still slightly more cost efficient than Blasting Wand, and it's still going to be a good buy, but again, you don't have as big of a spike in damage when you do get it. It's just going to be easier to get though. The first Needlessly Large Rod item that has been changed is Rabadon's Deathcap. It's 3,500 gold, so a little bit more expensive. Builds out of Amplifying Tome, as well as the Blasting Wand and Large Rod, as well as an increase in recipe cost. So overall, a little bit more included in the recipe. It's still 120 AP, but it also gives you 35% extra AP instead of 30. So overall, a little stronger. But with the way things are changing, like there's no more other 120 AP items. This will actually make your late game AP a little less overall, in my opinion, despite this extra 5%. So I think this is actually going to be a nerf once you look at the context of everything else. So we'll go through Zhonya's Hourglass. The next item has been nerfed and slightly buffed. The cost of it is slightly less, but the AP is lower as well. So again, like I was talking about, there's going to be a lower end game AP value when you get all your items. This has to do with all like the 120 AP items being removed. So this doesn't really change the usefulness of Hourglass. It's still going to be really good because of the stasis. That thing is, in my opinion, priceless. It can save your life. It can completely turn team fights if you use it correctly. So I think Zhonya's is going to be unaffected, really. It's just slightly less damage. Luden's Ekko has been nerfed, in my opinion. So a little correction. This actually isn't the right value for Luden's Ekko. It isn't that 3,300 gold item. It is 3,100. So this actually looks like less of a buff than it actually is. It's only 100 gold less for 20 AP less, but you do get an extra 3% movement speed. In my opinion, this won't be used as a like must-have item anymore. The nerf's last patch to how it charges up with spellcasts is much weaker, less AP now. The movement speed is actually really good. I think this is on the level of Triforce now. Triforce and Zephyr are around 10%, I think. So in that sense, it's really good, but everything else about it is really not that great. The proc has been nerfed, the AP ratio on that. So overall, it's much weaker than it was when it first came out. I think Deathcap will be the way to go if you want damage. This will be more about the movement speed and like the extra kiting ability it gives you. So like champions like TF will really like this. Rylai's Crystal Scepter, very big change, one of the biggest changes in terms of items this patch. So first things first, the item cost is 100 more, not a big deal. Ability power unchanged, health unchanged, but it also builds out of needlessly large rod instead of blasting one. So really this makes build diversity a little weaker because a lot of things are going to start building out of needlessly large rod. And I'll explain as we go on. A lot more things are going to be built out of it. But what makes Rylai's really strong now is the way it has been changed in terms of it's slowing your opponents. So what makes this a really good change from Rylai's Crystal Scepter is that not because of the single target slow, but the AoE slow is really good. It's been increased by 25%, so champions like Vladimir, Mordekaiser, Kennen, and Rumble, those champions will be really strong with this change. Along with Liandry's that has been buffed as well. We'll talk about that later. This is going to be a really strong combination in my opinion. The damage over time slow has been increased by 5%, but the duration is slower, so it's not a really big deal because it's constantly reapplied with dots, so the duration really doesn't matter. So whatever. Summon minions like Mordekaiser's ultimate and Annie's ultimate now slow on hit for 20%, so really good for them as well. I still think Mordekaiser has a lot of problems with his clone or his ghost. It like a lot of targeting bugs. There's so many bugs filled with that ultimate that they really need to fix that before he's really good. I think he's a really good champion. It's just like those bugs really screw with him. That's a whole different story entirely. There are new particle effects, so it may look a little cooler when you slow someone. I have to check them though. Archangels has been slightly buffed / nerfed. It's a little more in terms of cost, 300 gold, but you also get 20 AP out of it, so it's pretty good. Also builds out a needlessly large rod, again, like I said before. Less build diversity, but again, Archangels is going to be much stronger. So to go along with that, Seraph's Embrace has also been changed to 80 AP. It just makes sense, right? So one of the biggest changes to AP items this patch, along with Rylai's Crystal Scepter, is Rod of Aegis right here. And the reason for that is because not only is it reduced in cost, but it also has been changed in a lot of other positive ways. So I'll explain one of the nerfs though. one of the nerfs is that it's 150 HP less throughout the whole game. So I think the reason they did this is because you can either choose from Rylai's Crystal Scepter, you get a 400 HP immediately when you buy it, or Rod of Ages, which is a little less, but you stack up higher as you go on. So it's still stronger later in terms of HP. So that's one benefit of Rod of Ages. The mana is slightly lower, 50, when you first buy it, but after 10 minutes, you have 800 total mana. So overall, it's a buff because before you only got 200 mana plus 450, so 650. So the 800 mana as opposed to 650, you guys can tell, it's much better late game. Along with Seraph's Embrace, it synergizes very well. You get the extra 80 ability power here that was buffed. The mana from here that synergizes to increase the passive of Seraphs, along with the extra AP that they give Rod of Ages here. So instead of only 20 ability power, you get 40 ability power. So it's slightly less defensive, slightly more offensive, and mana focused. So it's going to be around, I think, what is it? 100 AP for this, 80 AP from this, and then the extra bonus from mana. Very strong in my opinion. And it will be, I think, a very strong combination, along with Rylai's and Liandry's. Rod of Ages Seraphs will be a good combination when they work together to increase damage. So we'll see a lot more build diversity. I think the mid lane will change quite a lot because of these changes. But we'll see. I think there's still going to be those poke and burst mages that are really strong, like Victor and I don't know about Xerath. I don't think Xerath is a very good poke mage anymore, especially with the hard engage comps, but we'll see. Haunting Guys, it's just a change to the cost of Haunting Guys. 20 extra gold. I think they're trying to just clean up the gold values of certain items, so like make it like 1350, 1500, make it very even, but it's not a big deal to be honest. Liandry's Torment has been buffed significantly in my opinion this fetch. Only 100 extra gold, but you get 30 extra AP out of this. And the reason why this is so good is because Liandry's was always a really good item. It gave you health, it gave you magic pen, very good early game stats, along with the burn passive, which was really good. Add in the fact that it's no longer a really low AP item. 50 is very low in my opinion. It's now 80. It's actually very strong. So Rylai's plus Liandry's is going to be a really good combination on a lot of champions. Teemo's going to get a buff from this, someone who's always used Liandry's. So overall, very strong item, and something that I think will be bought a lot. So like I said, Rod of Ages, Seraphs is going to be a good combo, along with Liandry's and Rylai's. Not necessarily together, those two, but just in like combination with each other, they're going to be really strong, those dual combos. Void Staff has been slightly changed. The gold cost has been increased by 205, which is quite a lot for only 10 AP. I don't really like this, but to be honest, Void Staff is a very cost-efficient item. Oftentimes you would see people actually rush Void before Deathcap because it would be more efficient against champions with, I think it depends on what your AP ratios are, but for most mages around like 60 magic resist, Void Staff is actually more efficient for damage. It's when you get to those low magic resist values and minion damage that Deathcap is better for farming and like that kind of stuff. But overall, Void Staff is still really good. I feel like they should change the value of Last Whisper if they're going to do this, which is, makes it kind of weird. I don't know though. Void Staff is still going to be really strong, not a big deal, just more expensive late game build. Nashor's Tooth has been changed slightly. And I don't know what they're trying to do. Like, I understand it, but I don't think it will do what they think it will do. The gold value is 80 more, not a big deal. Less attack speed by 10%, so not a big deal, but it is a nerf, so regardless. The ability power is increased though, so it's more in line with other AP items. But the thing is, like, not a lot of AP champions. There's very few AP champions that actually auto attack. The obvious example is Kayle and Teemo. Those are the two ones that would really benefit from extra AP or just extra buffs to this item. But most AP champions don't auto attack, so it's not that good of an item. You get the CDR and the attack speed, but if you're not going to auto attack, it's not really that good. You'd rather get like a Morello's, right? So I don't understand this change. I mean, it's still a buff to those champions that really kind of need it, but it's not going to do what they think it's going to do. So we'll see though. Wolf of the Ancients got a fairly decent buff. It looks kind of like a weird change, but I'll explain why it's good. Instead of Spell Vamp, you get a passive that gives you health back based on the amount of damage you would have done had you hit the target with no resists. So against minions, this will be weaker at keeping you topped off. So like Vladimir, it might hurt a little. But once you get into team fights, that magic resist will actually hurt your healing overall more than this nerf did. So this nerf from 20% to 15% is actually a buff when you get to team fights and you're hitting champions with magic resist as opposed to minions who don't really have magic resist really. So overall, this is a good change and will keep you alive more with those champions that use Worldly Ancients. The last two changes are to Morellonomicon and Athene's Unholy Grail. And really, the total cost hasn't changed. The only thing that has changed is that you have an amplifying tome inside the recipe, and the recipe cost, the final amount for it, is actually less. So the reason for this is because Riot wanted to have an alternative to buying the needlessly large rod. So needlessly large rod is 1250 gold right now. Pretty decent back would be around 1250 gold. 1600, it's very rare to actually get 1600 gold in a back. Like bot lane as an AD carry, you can sometimes get away with going back at 1550 gold for a BF sword, but the thing is you have a support and you have wards to protect you. Oftentimes with mid lane and top lane, if you're playing an AP top laner, you cannot afford to stay that long because lack of vision will get you killed, lack of sustain with pots will get you killed, things like that. It's just not a very good idea. This will allow you to go back, get a Fiendish Codex for both builds, and maybe an Amplifying Tome, and then you can choose which one you want after that. So this will be an alternative to just buying the needlessly large rod, which I think is nice. Overall, AP champions will have to change how they think about the game and what items to build. I think some items like Luden's Ekko are just going to be completely phased out if people are smart and actually look at the numbers. It's just not as good of an item anymore. The mobility it gives you is really good, but it's only for certain champions that need it. So overall, guys, quite a lot of changes. Hopefully you liked it. I will also have a full write-up of all these changes, a little bit more in depth maybe, on my website. If you guys want to take a look, go to the description below. I will have a link. You guys can take a look at that. But besides that, thanks again for watching, guys, and I'll see you guys next time.